Ever wondered which of the killers actually enjoy their time in the entity's trials? Which of them are really having fun and which are actually miserable? Here's our tiers and let's get into it. Straight up not having a good time. Nurse possibly embodies straight up not having a good time the best, with her entire existence in the realm and trials being pure suffering. Nurse can be heard frequently screaming when moving about the trials, and this is because whenever she blinks, she passes into a different sub-realm within the entity, causing severe burning pain. So Nurse is not having fun at all. Artist is very much suffering in a similar way, as one of the most innocent killers prior to the realm, and one which never killed. She doesn't want to be a killer really. She appears the way she does due to her getting her hands and tongue cut off and out, and the entity haunting her life, causing her to now join the realm. Artist screams out frequently and never has a happy look on her face, showing her inner torment and pain. Wraith is much the same, and another character who was haunted greatly by the entity, causing evil to follow him everywhere he went. Philip never wanted to be a killer and hated those who did kill, but violence always seemed to be something he ended up doing. Now in the realm, Wraith looks hollow and empty and simply cannot be enjoying himself. Bubba is a killer who is lore accurately stressed the fuck out. He is constantly on edge in the realm, worrying about his family, and now his ability to perform as the entity straight up attacks him if he ever fails. Bubba's whole existence has been trying to make authority figures happy, and he just must be exhausted living like this. Twins are another character who I really doubt are enjoying themselves. Charlotte seems annoyed the entire time in trial, and Victor just seems angry. It's likely that the two are happy ultimately, as seen in the lobby, with them being pretty content. However, in trial, it's a constant stress fest for Charlotte as she repeatedly relives the death of her brother as the survivors mockingly kick him. Kaneki is also just not having a good time, with him seemingly being persistently starved by the entity, leaving him angsty and overcome with his ghoul side, leaving his humanity to fall to the sidelines. This must make him miserable, with him hating violence, especially when it comes out due to his ghoulish desire to consume people. So Kaneki cannot be enjoying himself. I mean, bro is quite literally screaming and moaning every 3 seconds, so that's kind of self-explanatory. Not enjoying themselves. Hag does seem to lack humanity these days, being a hollowed out monster and showing little signs of her prior self, but I still doubt she's having that much fun. She's a wild animal almost, taken out of her original home and forced to hunt down these random people. Nothing in the trials screams Hag is enjoying them at all, and possibly the only moment she relishes is when she gets to eat one of them or drop their blood into her mouth. Plague is much the same, where she may be overall content with being in the realm of her god, but she does not show any love for the trials or performing in them, really. She sounds angry frequently, or just frustrated or in pain. I can only imagine what it's like to have your entire body overcome and persistently being ravaged by a literal plague. She cannot be having too much fun. Demogorgon, whilst it's basically just doing a job, I also can't imagine is enjoying itself all that much. It's already being mind-controlled and overcome by Vecna, forced into a war it never wanted. Now it's in a strange realm, repeatedly hunting random people it largely doesn't know. It probably just wants to go home, characterized by its persistent shrieks and screams at the survivors. It's probably not having a great time. Oni may be surprising, but bro certainly never wanted this, and upon coming to the realm he sort of realized that he'd destroyed his entire family and their legacy with his actions, making him likely not too thrilled to end up here, trapped and unable to undo them. Not only this, but he's forced to wear the Oni mask, Oni being a title he despised, leading him to be persistently angry, seeming to feed off of this for his power. I can't imagine Oni is enjoying himself, aside the small satisfaction from defeating those he views as inferior. Blight is another character who likely lives most of his life in persistent pain. I mean, look at the guy. Does this scream comfortable existence to you? The man's body is completely destroyed from the blighted serum, and his power is repeatedly slamming himself into the walls of the trial. I highly doubt this is any fun for him, and I think the only thing that redeems it is probably the few times he's able to enact an experiment of some kind onto the survivors, like seemingly in his Mori. Unknown is interesting as of course we don't really know its motives, but I do tend to think that it doesn't completely hate it here, as it still gets to hunt victims. The downside of course is its complete lack of freedom and seeming misalignment of values with the entity having to straight up drag Unknown into its realm, and Unknown seeming to confess its desire to one day escape.
I will not be denied my happiness.
Although this is of course debatable whether it's Unknown talking or just one of its victims. Really we can't precisely place it, but here's what I think. Xenomorph I doubt is enjoying itself and is likely highly confused being pulled into this strange realm, forced to repeatedly go against its nature by hooking the survivors. I do imagine it enjoys hunting them, but likely not in this way, so probably an overall dislike, I'd think. It depends on the day. Trapper is highly dependent on the day, as he's one of the most indecisive killers in the game when it comes to his values and morals and so on. Some days he's like the worst guy ever, and loves oppression and murder and stuff, and then other days he's like fighting back against Daddy and expressing himself through art and stuff like that. Daddy in this case being the entity. Therefore I think it simply depends on the day, whether you get a day of Trapper being rebellious, or a day of him feeling aligned with the entity, its rules, its trials and desires and so on. Huntress is sort of the same and even displays this in the trials with her love of the hunt seemingly, and soft lullaby and little giggles she does, proving her enjoyment. But then on the flip side, she sounds like a whiny baby whenever she gets stunned, showing another side of frustration and likely tiredness when it comes to hunting, as she's had to do this her whole life to try and defend her woods. So it's a bit of a 50-50, I think. Pig I think depends on the day, as she's a character who does have loyalty to the entity and also Jigsaw, believing the trials are the right place for her to be. Also her surely enjoying the nature of them and her ability to more directly punish others, to fulfill her own desires. However, she also has a lot of doubt and questioning, and she's generally just quite an insecure person, leading her to likely frequently doubt her actions too, which may result in the trials being no fun, and her believing she's really in the wrong. Spirit is another killer we can visually see is quite split, with her sometimes displaying a face of enjoyment, her spirit side, then other times showing anguish and despair, her Rin side. The clashing of these two sides making it so it's probably very dependent on the day whether she enjoys herself or not. I imagine it's pretty 50-50 all of the time, and not even on a per trial basis. She just experiences love for killing, but also despair surrounding it, all within the same trial, which must be really confusing. Deathslinger I imagine is quite split as well, as a character who does love to kill and hunt, but also feels a lot of regret over the hatred that he allowed to overtake his life, the ending of his lore really seeming to suggest that he feels a deep regret for what he's become, when he could have lived his life as an inventor or a mechanic. Caleb is also super twisted though, and we can hear his evil laugh in the trials as he brutally spears the survivors, so it's a bit of a 50-50. Singularity may hate humanity and love to hunt them and make them into him, but he still probably gets very angry over being trapped in the realm, his potential stifled, and his plans to wipe out humanity completely halted. He's also had to repeatedly endure getting stunned and things like that. That surely feels beneath him.
Surprising for an inferior life form.
He does have some very dry lines of enjoyment and mockery, but also lines that do seem to hint that he's not having the most fun. Henry is very much the same, where his plans have been very much stifled by him being trapped in the realm, and so I can't imagine him liking it that much. He does seem to enjoy having so many people trapped with him to toy with though, but many of his expressions and in-game lines all do still come from a place of anger and annoyance, rather than anything showing that he's having fun, I'd say. Maybe a twisted enjoyment, but nothing too real. Mostly enjoying themselves. Freddy is a character who surely mostly enjoys the trials, as a killer who does love what he does and tormenting people. However, there are some definite restrictions to his power in the realm, nerfed by the entity. He's also no longer got his favorite Nancy in the realm. However, his lore does state that other survivors would become his favorites, so I think overall he's still enjoying himself. He still does his dumb chuckle and seems to gain enjoyment from what he's doing. Ghostface is clearly loving the realm, with him shown to silently laugh as he jumps around and messes about in the lobby. In the trials, this translates with his Mori, where he snaps a photo with the dying survivor, showing off his whimsical nature. However, he likely can't get his full enjoyment in the realm compared to out, as he no longer has the same freedoms, nor does he get to execute his ritual of stalking, and then also writing about his kills in the paper, making his enjoyment stifled, I imagine. Nemesis is a tough read, and in some ways I think it probably doesn't even matter, as his thoughts are that of a parasite and are also programmed, which puts into question his own opinion entirely. What thoughts are really his own? There are moments both in DBD and also RE3 though where he does seem to get enjoyment from what he's doing, by mincing his kills and taking pleasure and time with them. Therefore I think he probably does largely enjoy the realm, but would rather be out of it hunting only stars, as his desire to get them is still present even in the realm. Sadako, whilst being very vengeful and enjoying killing, I don't think is happy necessarily to be here. Sure, she likes it and she is overcome with vengeance, but I don't think this makes her happy. She's more just overcome with anger. Regardless, I bet it beats being eternally in a well though in terms of enjoyment, and so I'd rather put her here still, but she's definitely not loving it, just enjoying it, I think. Preferable over a well. Skull Merchant, I think, is another character who likely does enjoy the trials and the realm, but would probably also much rather be free and be able to hunt and kill in the way she pleases. The greatest draw for her is surely that she gets to fully embrace her role as the Skull Merchant though. She gets to finally be fully immersed in her cosplay and role as a killer, and just focus on that, which I'm sure she does like, as all of her wealth and gaining it did all seem to be a means to an end for her to hunt people essentially. But still, I'd imagine she'd want to be out in the real world with her drones having more complex tracking and a wider variety of environments too. Pyramid Head I don't think has any opinion and desire as to what's going on, but does seem to get some kind of kick out of what he does, so I'm not gonna really say there's much weight to this, but I think he probably enjoys it here. Vecna surely enjoys the realm as he literally wanted to come here, fascinated by the entity and wanting to one day overthrow its realm by studying it thoroughly. Of course though, Vecna is another character nerfed by the realm's confines and the entity's rules, and even confesses that he'll play his part for now.
I shall make this place mine.
He's not set on staying and can't love being stunned by far inferior beings to him, from his perspective at least, repeatedly. One day it'll all be his, apparently. Krasu, it sort of depends on how much agency you give to Burong and to the Krasu, and then how much overlap there is between the two. I think in her case it's a bit like Spirit, where there is sort of a divide between the two, as in her lore, Burong awakes from a night as the Krasu and she doesn't remember what happened. Therefore in the realm, how much does Burong really remember? I think for this reason, at most she can just be enjoying it, but no way it's like that fun for her, or the Krasu, or them both together. Maybe for the Krasu, I guess. That the Krasu's probably having fun. Having a lot of fun. Billy is surely having a lot of fun, now free to do as he pleases, and given limited rules by the entity to work off of. Billy is shown to love the entity, and we know he loves to also just kill stuff and to be free from the clutches of his parents. So I think he's kind of just having a blast with his ever-fading humanity. He does groan out when he does a chainsaw dash, but I don't think this is a pained one. Trickster is a killer who clearly adores being here, with him getting free reign to be the twisted psycho he is, cackling constantly and laughing at his own enjoyment and the pain and screams of others. Guy is having a blast. I think the only thing that might hold him back is that he no longer gets quite the same adoration from his fans, nor the benefits of fame. The entity does seem to try and account for this by standing in for these things, but I don't think he'll have the full enjoyment or experience. The entity does really try for Trickster though. I mean, look at the entire realm it made just off of his delusion. Pinhead and the other Cenobites I imagine are having a good time overall and do enjoy the realm. Really, I think they see this all as a form of duty, but equally they do definitely derive pleasure from what they're doing, and even some pain in the realm's case. I would argue it's a lot more pain with the realm though, and so this imbalance may throw off the Cenobites somewhat and hold them back from full enjoyment. Wesker is another character who surely loves the realm for his ability to exert force over those who he views as inferior or weaker, but he surely can't enjoy the fact that he was pulled away from his years of planning and lifelong work of Ouroboros and its release. I'm sure he would rather be out there, spreading Ouroboros to everyone, but the intense enjoyment he clearly gets from the realm is still very present. He's quippy as ever and constantly saying things that seem to suggest him just enjoying himself. Chucky is one of few killers where we have a very direct admission that he just straight up loves this place.
I love this place.
He gets to run around the trials being the little he is and doing his thing. I think once again, like some others in this tier, the only thing that might hold him back is that he probably would still rather be free and would prefer being out of the realm rather than being locked up, but it's undeniable he loves it. Dracula is another who directly says this is vampire heaven.
This is vampire heaven.
So bro clearly loves and enjoys the realm, or at the very least sees the huge benefits of it to himself, to some extent. He's probably tired of being repeatedly killed by Belmonts in the real world, and so it's refreshing that in the realm he can only really be hurt by pallets at most. He gets to eternally hunt humanity and punish them as he sees fit. The only thing I could see him not liking is that he probably would get pretty bored due to the ease of it all. Houndmaster is kind of in the same vein, where she's clearly having a ball and absolutely loving hunting the weaker survivors in the realm, exerting her force over them, and openly mocking many of them as well. However, I do think her enjoyment would only go so far, and she would bore at times, or simply just want a slightly harder challenge, with her facing so much worse during her time on the seas or on the Overlap Island. Springtrap again is same vein, where he'd undoubtedly love his time in the realm, which seems to be pretty aptly depicted with his voice lines and overall happiness he seems to have. Yet he'd probably still prefer if he could be back at Freddy's for real and tormenting or killing the people he really wants to. The lore does suggest he enjoys it here, but I can't imagine as much as he enjoyed his life before. Having a blast. Legion are basically living their dream, and even though they are essentially under the thumb of an ancient spider god, they don't seem that concerned, and seem to be mostly enjoying themselves, getting the entity to lay down beats on their tracks and stuff like that. Yeah, they always wanted to be famed killers, and so to be placed in the realm alongside the likes of people far more renowned than them must feed their egos pretty well, along with the entity's buffs making them feel extensively powerful. They're also one of few killers who actually get to hang out with their buddies as well within the realm, which is surely a pretty big bonus. Clown is laughing the entire time in the trials, and I do think this is quite a genuine laugh of enjoyment, with him realizing he's free to do as he pleases without the consequences or bounds of the real world. He doesn't have to worry about the law or authority aside the entity, I guess, and he gets to be his murdery, disgusting self without judgment, and he's actually rewarded for it if anything. He also kept Maurice, so I think he's absolutely loving it here. Myers doesn't seem to have opinions like most people, but I do think he still shows some emotions despite him being claimed as completely emotionless. He clearly prefers being free and killing over being trapped within the penitentiary, for example, so I think he's loving it here, especially with his far more flexible rules than other killers. Debatable for sure, but I think he's here. Dredge, similar to Myers, is basically fulfilling its function as the embodiment of dark thoughts and evil, and so surely in the realm where those things are likely very present, it would be thriving. Maybe it's not the same enjoyment as in a human sense, but a similar idea, so I'll place it here. Doctor is almost undeniable, bro is loving it, and sure he's insane, but regardless he is still straight cackling at what's going on, and all he's doing is repeatedly shocking survivors and smacking them with his bat, but bro loves it. And from the other bits of flavor text we do learn that the entity kind of gives into Doctor's desires too, and allows his experiments to become quite extensive, which he must love. He's having a blast. Knight, I think, is loving the realm too, in a place he views as a paradise, or the sublime he calls it. Much like Legion as well, he gets the added benefit of hanging out with his boys, even if they are quite undead at this point. They do still speak or communicate, and so I'm sure that's a huge bonus too. Me and the boys eternally hunting down survivors type thing. Jason finally is definitely a killer who enjoys the realm and is having a great time. As similar to Myers as well, his drive seems to just be to kill, and so if he's doing that, he's happy and having a great time. He gets that over and over in the realm, and so I think he's likely just having a blast, even if he doesn't show it very visually, I suppose. It's hard to behind a mask, I guess. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts as always down below. Thanks, and goodbye.